Hey everyone, Kimchica here. Again, please excuse the mess as I unpack ever so slowly and figure out what to do with my studio, but I wanted to share some of the top games you may not have heard of in 2018. Some of my absolute favorite titles I've already waxed poetic many times over on various videos and streams, and my goodness, there were so many incredible titles in 2018. Games like Far Lone Sails, Wandersong, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine, Frostpunk, Moonlighter, Minit, Florence, Return to Obra Dinn, GRIS, and my personal game of the year, Celeste, all received attention in the indie world. But what I wanted to do today is take a look at some of the titles that may not have even met your radar and illuminate them so that you do not miss out. These titles are listed in no particular order because ranking them is just frankly too darn hard. So let's just jump into the list and check out some of these titles that you might have missed the first time around in 2018.
Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass. For those of you who enjoy SNES era JRPGs, please don't miss out on Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass. This title takes the classic JRPG format and adds many of its own unique touches that make this game a standout and one that will, I think, lend it to achieving a cult classic status in the future. Jimmy is not your average 8-year-old. He's empathetic, and in his dreams, his empathy allows him to transform into the monsters he confronts, allowing his understanding and exploration of the world to expand. While the game has lots of locations for you to discover, like a city of music, a spaceship, and more, there is a threat drawing closer to Jimmy's consciousness and subconsciousness, and you'll need to work with his family and friends to confront it. There are moments of laugh-out-loud quirkiness mixed in with moments of absolute horror in this title, which make this journey one that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The battles can be quite challenging, and there are some odd peaks and valleys in terms of difficulty scaling, but the developer does provide some skills that'll allow you to have a more relaxed time of it if you're hoping to focus more on story, or if you just don't want to spend a lot of time leveling your characters. The pixel art looks great, and the music surprised me with how catchy some of the tunes were. I found myself listening to the soundtrack outside of the game. Overall, I recommend Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass because of the way it takes a tried and true genre and effectively makes it its own. The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa. The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa was a game that took me totally by surprise. I had requested a key for this title, intrigued by the premise of an existential open-world beat-em-up with school sim elements, and my goodness, this game delivered it in a way that kept me playing for hours, completely immersed in my life as a high school delinquent. In Ringo, you have an immense amount of choice provided to you. You're a student about to fail out of your last year in high school, and up until this point, have spent your time starting fights and hanging out in a tightly knit gang. You've got about 30 days to figure out what you want to do, or if you even want to try to do anything at all. You can study to get your grades up, start fights, talk and hang out with your friends, or just wander aimlessly and listen to the awesome soundtrack. There's very little in the ways of explicit goals or story, but oddly enough, this game is almost better for it. You get to know Ringo and his friends, and in going through the mundane motions of daily life, may find yourself becoming very invested in what happens to them. I know I did. It may be important to note that while there are beat-em-up elements in this game, the controls are not as finessed as one would expect in a traditional beat-em-up, and rather this title seems to draw from the genre rather than try to be a fighting game in and of itself. Semblance. This was a game I played about halfway through last year when it came out, and it has still stuck with me. Semblance is a puzzle platformer that takes the platforms you normally just jump on and has you manipulate them to create your own pathways to your goal. Everything is a little soft and squishy in the land of Semblance, but a crystal sickness has spread. As a little blob with a lot of initiative, you're going to push, squish, and bounce your way to figuring out just what exactly happened to the world. Each of the 3 areas has its own distinct personality, and the beautiful soundtrack effectively layers and crescendos when you get close to reaching the solution for each puzzle. It can be quite a moving experience, especially with the puzzles that take you a long time to figure out. The difficulty of the game scales smoothly if you go in order, but if you get stuck, you can always skip each puzzle and move on. What's really neat is that everything is available to you from the get-go. There is a narrative that's also sprinkled throughout the walls of the world if you want to piece together the story, or you can simply wander and just solve everything. It's up to you. Ghost of a Tale. Mice are not necessarily known for their bravery. Well, except for the mice of Redwall, and I guess Mickey Mouse and Mighty Mouse. Okay, so heroism does seem to run strong with mice, but Tillo, our protagonist of Ghost of a Tale, is not what you'd expect of a normal mouse hero. He's a minstrel who's been tossed into jail and must use stealth and cunning to navigate the halls of Dwindling Heights to save his love. You'll need to acquire outfits and strategies to hide, sometimes in plain sight, from the rats who will want to do you harm, and even befriend other inhabitants of the keep and do them favors to get information on how to explore more deeply. This is a stunning game with visuals that rival some of the AAA titles that have come out recently, and there's lots of lore and story to unravel. My only complaint about this game was that there was a lot of time I spent wandering what felt slightly aimlessly when given instructions to just find certain objects, but despite that, this is a charming title in an anthropomorphic world that I, ultimately, truly enjoyed being in. I would love to see more happening with this world in the future and hope that this is just the start of our adventures with Tillo. Lucah, Born of a Dream. Before jumping into this game, it's important to note that the title does have flashing patterns that may affect people with photosensitive epilepsy. Lucah, Born of a Dream is an action game with a distinct art style that blends the messiness of chalk with the sharpness of broken glass, and that admittedly took me a bit to warm up to. But the more I played, the more I realized that this art style fit the story and the world perfectly. In this title, you play as Lucah, a Mark child who is cursed. All of their inner demons come to life as nightmares that you must use magic, known as mantras, and familiars to defeat, and eventually, hopefully, find salvation. The combat is smooth and with a variety of mantras and familiars to mix and match, as well as some challenging boss battles, your hands will be kept full. But while I found certain boss battles immensely challenging, this game isn't one of those intentionally punishing titles to play, which helped me personally stay engaged with the story. For those of you who want an extra challenge, there is a New Game Plus that you can try out. The story is the gem here, and I don't want to give anything away because part of why I think I enjoyed it so much is that I went in with very little knowledge and expectation, so all I'll say is it addresses themes of loss and self-discovery in some really interesting ways.
So those were my picks for 8 games you may not have heard of in 2018, but should definitely pick up if you have the chance. And of course, while my New Year's resolution is to work on my backlog of titles, I still am not opposed to adding to that list, so be sure to list some of your favorite titles from 2018, indie or not, and I'd love to hear from you because, again, I'm always looking out for games to play. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button, and if you want to find out more about me, about indie games, be sure to find me on other social media outlets as well. I'm on Twitter at Kimchica25, and I post pretty much only about indie games and indie game events there. I'm on Instagram at Jenny Wyndham. You can see my cats, my daily life, and of course I cover indie game events through stories on there quite frequently as well. And finally, you can find me on twitch.tv/Kimchica, where I stream indie games primarily from about 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time most weekdays. So that's it. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, that you're finding lots of indie games to play, and I will see you in the next video.